All right, today we're going to dig into something really fascinating. It's a revolutionary idea that over 100 years ago tried to turn work from just, well, an art into a full-blown science. It's called scientific management, and you might be surprised at just how relevant its core ideas are today. Just think about this for a second. What if every single thing you did at work, every movement you made, was analyzed and optimized, and not just for the company's bottom line, but for your benefit too? That's the wild question at the heart of this entire system. Now, to really get how radical this was, we've got to go back in time and see what it was replacing. Before this whole scientific approach came along, the world of work was pretty much driven by tradition and gut feelings. It was truly an age of guesswork. And wow, this slide really lays it all out, doesn't it? On one side, you have the old way, all about brawn over brains, vague orders, and a foreman who was basically just there to push people. And on the other, this new approach built on measurement, precision, and get this, a foreman who's actually a teacher. This wasn't just a tiny adjustment, it was a complete reinvention of how a person relates to their job. This right here captures the chaos of that old system. I mean, think about it. Workers were hired for brute strength, not necessarily for skill. Foremen would sometimes even team up with their workers to intentionally slow down production. They called it soldiering, just to protect their jobs. There was no real training, so everyone just kind of learned things differently. The whole system was just fundamentally broken. But as you can imagine, this new idea of measuring and standardizing everything about a job was met with a ton of criticism. The number one fear? That it would turn human beings into mindless cogs in some giant, soulless machine. And this quote from Gilbreth, who wrote our source material, tackles that fear head on. She literally calls out the widespread belief that this system kills individuality. But her entire argument, and what we're about to unpack, is that the real intention was the exact opposite. Because you see, at its core, scientific management wasn't really about the work itself. It was about the worker. It was designed to be a science of people, built on a surprisingly deep understanding of the individual. So the first pillar of this new science was measurement. But hold on, this wasn't about squeezing every last bit of energy out of someone. The whole point was to find the one best way to do a job, the method that involved the fewest motions, the least waste, and, this is the crucial part, the least amount of fatigue for the worker. And here's the game plan. First, you analyze a job, breaking it down into these tiny little motions. Then you measure those motions to figure out which ones are the most efficient. And finally, you piece together a brand new standard method using only the best parts. The result? A process that's faster, easier, and way less tiring. And this is so important. This wasn't about spying on people. Gilbreth was absolutely clear that the whole process had to be transparent. It required the full cooperation and knowledge of the worker. The goal was to collaborate on finding a better way, not to secretly catch people being inefficient. Now, this idea of cooperation didn't just stop at measuring tasks, it completely blew up the whole management structure. Under the old system, it was simple, right? You had one foreman, one boss. He was in charge of everything. Scientific management flipped this on its head. Suddenly, a worker didn't have one boss, they could have up to 8. But here's the twist. These weren't 8 people barking orders at you. They were 8 specialized teachers, each one there to help you succeed. Just look at how this worked. You had a gang boss who made sure all your tools were ready, a speed boss to teach you the best methods for your machine, an inspector to help with quality, and the most surprising one, the disciplinarian. Their main job wasn't punishment, it was to be a peacemaker and an advocate for the worker. This was basically a built-in support system. Okay, the next big pillar was standardization. Now again, this sounds super restrictive, right? But the psychological idea behind it was actually the opposite. By standardizing tools and methods, you get rid of all the mental energy you waste making the same small decisions over and over. It basically clears out the mental clutter so you can focus on mastering the task and maybe even figuring out how to make it better. So how did all this theory actually play out on the factory floor? Well, it all boiled down to a system of really clear teaching and some pretty powerful incentives. And the main tool for this was something called the instruction card. This thing wasn't just a to-do list. It was a detailed blueprint for success that a worker got for every single job they did. The magic of the card was its total clarity. It told you exactly how to do the work, precisely how long it should take, and exactly what your bonus would be if you nailed it. It even gave you access to information explaining the why behind the method. All that guesswork and uncertainty, gone. And this just created a revolution in motivation. I mean, the difference is night and day. The old way was uncertain, probably based on whether the foreman liked you and was all about punishment. The new way, the complete opposite. Your bonus was fixed, it was guaranteed, and it was based purely on your performance. Everybody had the exact same chance to succeed based on their own effort. But maybe the most profound and the most misunderstood part of scientific management was its ultimate goal. It went way beyond just making things faster. It was trying to create a whole new kind of welfare. Gilbreth called it a system of self-perpetuating welfare. The idea was that a worker's well-being shouldn't just be some charitable afterthought. It should be baked right into the fabric of the work itself. So, unlike the usual corporate welfare, which often felt like a patronizing gift that employees kind of resented, this new welfare was something workers actually earned. By working together efficiently, they created the very savings that paid for their own higher wages and better conditions. It wasn't a handout, it was a direct result of the system working correctly. When you look at the whole picture, this was meant to be a holistic system. It was designed for mental development by sparking real interest in the work, moral development by building responsibility, and physical development by systematically getting rid of fatigue. The goal was to build the worker up, not to break them down.
Which brings us to the big question for today. We look at this system now, in our world of workplace analytics, productivity tracking, and optimization software. Is this 100-year-old idea a blueprint for empowering workers, or does it lay the foundation for the ultimate form of control? That's something we're thinking about